Alright, so once you have your sketch done, you're going to be ready to get started. So here's my sketch. I labeled what elements and principles my design is using and gave myself some notes. Those are going to be cutouts. And then just to make it easier, oh yeah, we're going to roll a slab. So you're going to need a cloth, get the wrinkles out. Your meter sticks, we use those just as thickness guides. And then we want to get our clay as wide as we need it, because as we roll, it's only going to stretch one direction. So I'm just kind of rolling it like a sausage. And then I'm going to flatten it down so that I can work smarter, not harder. Like I said, those sticks are only for like thickness guides. So you want to make sure your rolling pin can touch those sticks. So you're going to keep rolling that slab until the rolling pin rolls on the sticks so that you know it's even throughout. And sometimes our clay might be a little moist, and you see that wet spot on the rolling pin. We can put a little clay powder right on the rolling pin to make sure our slab doesn't, roll up onto that pin. Or another option is you can grab an additional cloth and like sandwich your clay between it and then roll. Because like we said, powder isn't the best thing to have in our air, so the less you use it, the better. So now my slab is good. It's nice in the center. There's a couple of pieces that I don't need at the end that look thick. I'm just going to cut those off. So yeah, cut up anything you know you're not going to use because it's too thick. Ball up your clay, put it back in your bag is the best place for any scraps to be. And then make it nice and smooth. Use the rib tool. It's a flat metal disc. Use the round edge and just gently glide over to remove any crinkles, wrinkles, or marks in your slab. This kind of just gives you a nice smooth surface to work with. Making sure that it fits on my design, my template. And then I'm going to go grab a pair of scissors and cut that rectangle out. So just follow the rectangle that's on your template and cut that out. And throw the extras away. You won't need it, the scraps anymore. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use a ruler because I want to make sure I have a nice straight line for this. I'm going to use a fettling knife. You want to make sure you hold it very straight up and down, not at an angle, and just follow along your ruler edge. Anytime you're cutting a slab that you want to be even if you're using a paper template, always use the ruler. If you don't like the big bulky rulers, we do have smaller rulers over in the nook next to our cabinets. There's all those basic art supplies, so you can grab a smaller one if you don't like using the big meter stick, but it's already out, so it works. Again, ball up your scraps, put them back in your bag. Remember, air is the enemy of our clay, so the best place for these scraps is in your bag, and then kind of close your bag while you're working. And then to transfer my design, you're going to want a ballpoint pen, or it could even be a dull pencil, nothing sharp and pointy, okay? So I'm just repositioning my design because it wasn't really in the middle. And I'm just pushing firmly, but not like aggressively into the clay. I'm just going to be pressing over the paper to kind of mark out where my designs were. And sorry, I'm left-handed, so my arm gets in the way frequently. But that's what I'm doing. I'm pressing over my design so that there'll be an imprint in my clay when I remove it. So it's very faint. Okay, you can't see it that well, but I'm just putting them there as a guide. We're not going to actually carve those lines today because the clay is too soft for carving. So what we're going to do is start our attachments right away while it's still flat. If we have a lot of class time, you can attach attachments while it's still flat. So we're going to roll another slab. So recap, you always need a cloth. You can't roll it on your table or on the wedge table. You need a cloth. You need your meter sticks as your thickness guide. Stretch your clay so that it's wide, like rolling it like that little sausage, placing it there and squishing it down. So for my design, my signature is what's going to be sticking out. So I want to make sure I'm rolling a slab big enough for that little, B McG signature I got. So I'm just going to place it on the slab again. And then, like I said, firmly but not too aggressively, I'm tracing over my design. All right, so it's very faintly on there now. You can kind of see it in the video, but you'll see it in real life. And I'm going to get a couple of cutting tools. I can either use the fettling knife or this small Kemper tool. Since I have like some really small areas, I'm going to go with the Kemper tool. If you're cutting something like a simple shape out, the fettling knife is the way to go. But since I have like some curves and some piercings to do, I'm going to use that Kemper. Now pay attention, I'm not like just following my whole shape and cutting. I'm making very strategic cuts and coming, from the inside out and outside in, switching my hands even to like get the proper cut so that I can hopefully remove the excess clay more easily. So we're just finishing up the little details, cutting this out. Being very careful when I pull away my scrap since I have this very detailed kind of cutout. And now I'm going to get ready to place it on my slab. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of going to gently trace over my design again. Not as detailed as I did for cutting it out, just a guide so I know where it's going. Because to properly attach clay together, we have to do a process called scoring and slipping. So in your tool bins, you'll see some forks, and you'll see a little container with a red lid. The red lid has the slip in it, and you can score with really anything sharp. So if you're doing really tiny work, the Kemper tool works great to score, or you can use your fork for larger areas. So I'm just scoring where that piece is going. And I'm also going to need to score the back of the piece that's going there. So we always score where it's going and what's going there. And what that does is it creates like a little locking grooves for the clay to re-grab each other so that it will, rebond to each other. So I just gently flipped it over by using another cloth. I'm going to gently score the back because it is a kind of fragile piece. And you always want to slip and score at your earliest stage. Anytime you're doing attachments, the sooner the better. For slip, you just want to dip your finger in and kind of dab it where it needs to go, not excessively. And slip is just clay powder and water mixed together to be a yogurty consistency. Now we're just carefully lining this up. And it's not gonna look super pretty and clean the first day. What we're worried about that first day is making sure it's not gonna stay attached for the entirety of our construction and firing. So I'm really just focusing on pressing those grooves into each other and adjusting my design to where it belongs. I'm just removing the insides of that B that I never did earlier. And then we're just gonna try to make sure that stays on well. So like I said, I still see some score marks on there. It looks a little messy, not too concerned, but I do want to take some sort of tool and help kind of blend in the edges of that design. So in your tool bins, you could use, some of you have wooden, like wooden modeling tools. Some of you have the green modeling tools. They both work, whichever you end up preferring. You could also use the other edge of that Kemper tool, like it's got the curved blade edge too, to clean up around your details. Here, I'm going to grab the modeling tools to show. So like I said, some of you have green, some of you have wooden ones. They're just kind of like the back of it's like a little fingernail. You just use it and kind of blend a little bit in to like make the seam go away. So where that slab is joining slab, we're just taking a little bit of the clay and making that seam go away to make sure it's kind of staying together. Now we did that attachment right away today while it was still flat, while our slab was still nice and soft. But we do want to make sure that we bend this slab into the cylinder shape before the end of our first day working on it. If I were to go and store this for the weekend, I would come back and I would not be able to bend that slab into a cylinder. So we're going to slip and score those edges and then just kind of carefully bend and join those seams together. So again, locking those groove marks, those score marks that you made together. Really focusing just on that seam, and it takes a careful manipulation. As you see, it's not quite perfectly a cylinder, so we're going to make those adjustments. And if I still needed to do attachments while it's a cylinder, I can. I can do that next time when it's a little more stiffened, but I don't want to get, I don't want it to get too dry before I get everything attached. So we always start with our attachments. We're going to clean up that seam, so make the seam on the inside disappear. Again, you can use that modeling tool. Or if your hand can fit in there, you can just use your hand. The exterior seam, you can use the rib tool, so the rounded edge, and keep your hand in there for support of the shape. Just glide up that seam. And then just work to make it as round as you can. Now we want to get a bottom on it. Now, if you don't get a bottom on it the first day, that's fine. You can attach it the next day too, but this is the process. And like I said, the sooner you get your attachments done, the better. So as early as you can, you'll have a higher success rate of your piece staying together without any cracks. So I just had another slab ready, fettling knife, and I'm going to cut like a tiny bit bigger than my cylinder. So I'm tracing the cylinder, but I'm just a tiny bit bigger than it, like 1/8 of an inch. And then you could save the rest of that slab if you know you have more attachments to do, or ball it up, put it back in your bag right away. So to properly attach that, we have to slip and score. So we're going to go ahead and score around the outside edge. And I can score and slip at the same time by dipping into the slip and then scoring. And then do your bottom edge. A little extra slip. Shouldn't be like oozing everywhere, just And then giving it a little wiggle to lock in those grooves. And then again, we're going to take that little bit extra and blend it up into the form. I had a little bit too much extra, so I'm cutting it off. And then just taking that modeling tool, or I could have used my finger and just blended that excess clay up into the piece. So this is my day one. You can see the design is quite messy still. I have lots of cleanup to do. But cleaning up clay designs when they're still super soft and malleable is just like working against or like swimming against the tide, right? You're not going to get anywhere. So I'm just making sure my attachment is on there really well. So double checking that I blended everything. And then later I'll show you how to properly clean up when the clay can hold its form a little bit better. Because if we tried to like clean up now, we'd just be like like changing the shape of the clay, we'd be getting gouges in it, we'd be cleaning it up constantly. So like I said, it's pretty messy right now, and that's fine. You can see the clay is very flexible, so that's why we don't want to go too much further today.